All right, here we go. We got a couple of proofs here that we're going to go through. We're given that AB is congruent to CB, and that is already marked for us right there. And then D is the midpoint of the full side here, AC. So that means something here about the two little pieces that make up AC. And then we're going to prove that the two triangles are congruent. Okay, so very first reason right there. Most of the times it's the given step right there. But AB is congruent to CB. That was given to us. The second given thing to us here was D was the midpoint of AC, so I'm going to go ahead and put given for that as well. Now, if D is the midpoint, that means that AD, that piece, equals the piece DC, which is step 3. That's going to be definition of midpoint. And that's because we use the word midpoint, that means we're cutting it in half right there. So definition of midpoint. Okay, finally you have DB is congruent to DB. This is your shared side here in the middle. All right, shared sides are always implied to be congruent if they overlap. So that's true right there. That is the reflexive property. So we'll go ahead and put that there. And then based off of my markings, and we can say, well, we have 3 pairs of the sides right there. So we can say by side, 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 that the two triangles are congruent. So that'll be that proof right there. Okay, next one here. What are we doing here? B is the midpoint of AE. B is the midpoint of CD. We're going to prove that the two triangles here are congruent. So if B is the midpoint of this entire AE side, that means that these two little pieces here are congruent. That means it's got to be cut in half right there. Okay, and then if B is also the midpoint of CD, this full side right here, that means that these two little pieces here are going to be cut in half. So we can go ahead and mark those congruent. One thing that you can always mark, we talked about it on the previous problems, was your vertical angles. You had your vertical angles and your shared side. You can always go ahead and mark those congruent right there. And that's because every vertical angle should be congruent. And then because of side angle side, these two triangles here should be congruent. So let's go ahead and fill that in. First thing here, B is a midpoint of AE that was given to us. Okay. Since B was the midpoint of AE, that means that AB and BE actually were congruent. So I'll say AB is congruent to BE. Okay. They also told us B was the midpoint of CD, so that was also given to us. So I'll go ahead and write that. And we concluded that the other two small pieces, DB and BC, were congruent. So DB congruent to BC. Okay, and that was a definition of midpoint. Now next, it should have been angle here. Sometimes the Mac and Microsoft Word don't like to get it along right there, so that should be an angle symbol right there. So angle ABD is congruent to angle C, or I guess EBC right there. Those are the two vertical angles. The reason they don't put angle B is congruent to angle B is because there's multiple angles. You know, they got the top ones and the ones to the sides. There's multiple angles near B, so we need to make sure we're specific about which one we're talking about. So we use 3 letters. We say angle A to B to D. That angle right there is congruent to from E to B to C right there, that angle. So that one right there, that is the vertical angle theorem. On that one, vertical angle theorem just says all vertical angles are congruent to one another. All right, and then we said by side angle side that the two triangles happen to be congruent. So that's that. Okay, next one here is actually one from your notes that we've gone over here. We have 2 different pairs of parallel lines. So the first one here, and I'm going to color code these because there's a lot of parallel lines. So you got WU is parallel to YV, so that's these 2 lines right here. They put the 2 triangle markings on those for the parallel lines. Now, since you have a common transversal right here, we can say that these pairs of corresponding angles are going to be congruent, and that's going to be step 2 right there. So the first thing we just say given, of course, and then we're going to say UWX, that corresponding angle is congruent to VYZ. Those are corresponding angles that touch parallel lines. That is the corresponding angle theorem when that happens. Okay. So next they give us a different pair of parallel lines. So that's those two, and those are on a common transversal like this right here. So now we can say that these two corresponding angles are going to be equal right there. So this next one here is given, and then you got the corresponding angle theorem again. Okay. And then here, I'm going to kind of clean this up here. The final thing that they told us was that you have Wx is actually congruent to YZ, and that's marked right there. So that was given as well. And based off of my markings, I can say by angle side angle that the two triangles are congruent. And that'll be it. And we did that same exact one in the lesson, in the notes. Alright, so we got one more here. This one's totally blank here. So we got two triangles. We're trying to prove that triangle ABE is congruent to triangle going the wrong direction, EDA. So this one, since the triangles overlap, it's kind of good to highlight them like that right there in different colors so you can see which ones you're talking about there. So right now it appears that I got two pairs of angles that are congruent to one another, and that's because they said angle B was congruent to angle D up there at the top, and then angle DAE is congruent to angle BEA right there. Okay, so since the two triangles have this overlapping side right here in the middle, and if you just look at one of the triangles, maybe like the blue one right there, you can say the two triangles are congruent because of the angle, and then the side right there. So that's why the two triangles will be congruent. Angle, side. So let's go ahead and put our statements and reasons. They didn't tell us how many statements, but let's look here. We need to address angle 1, so we'll say, or not angle 1, angle B. So step 1, we'll say angle B is congruent to angle D. Oops. And statement 1 here, or reason 1, that was given to us. Okay, next we'll say for step 2, we'll say angle DAE is congruent to angle BEA. Okay, that was also given. So two given things. We had the shared side, that overlapping side, so we'll say AE is congruent to AE. That is your reflexive property again. I think we've used that once already. And then that actually shows, that addresses the angle, and then the last side right here. So that addresses everything that we need. So now we can say the two triangles are congruent by angle, side. So this will be triangle ABE congruent to triangle EDA. And that is angle, side. So just look at one of your highlighted triangles. I know originally I had two triangles highlighted, but if you look at like one at a time, that should help you out there on that.